So what I do want to do though, where is the speeds video? The need for speeds. Go to desktop. What do you think of the speed changes and interceptors? Well, that's a great question, Underrated. We are literally going to talk about that very thing right now. So we're going to start off talking about like the actual, like we're just going to watch the presentation again. I'm going to pause it and go through and just kind of give my thoughts on it, because these are some big changes. Hi, boys.
My name is Yogi Klatt. I'm a
Cheers, Yogi.
programmer in the vehicle feature team. I'm here with Rich Towler, David Colson,
that fucking sucks,
and Johnny Young. And today we're gonna...
I love you, Yogi, but
Jet Talbot.
Mr. Talbot is fucking sweating, baby. He is sweating.
And Johnny Young. And today we're gonna
nice glasses, thanks, buddy.
The changes to the flight systems and the combat systems, which I don't specifically was one for.
Okay, we're gonna try that every time he says speed, we're gonna take a. This is all vodka, man. I'm not gonna drink this straight. I will take a little bit though. I will take a little bit off the top. All right. Thank you for all the subs, brothers. Thank you for the support to the Imperial Navy. Right.
42, but which will eventually find the way to...
Yes, water.
the universe.
I mean, I have water with me. It does have lemon in it, though, so it's like lemon vodka. It's an intro to ship roles.
We want to define ship roles for the game, because every role in itself and every ship can offer unique gameplay opportunities for individual players.
Okay, I have been saying this for a long time. Now, some people may disagree, but ships who have specific roles to play is how Star Citizen is going to move forward in a healthy, dynamic way. That is why when I called for the Ion to get nerfed, don't blame me for how they nerfed it. That wasn't my fault. But the problem was the Ares Ion and the Ares Inferno were too far into the category of light and medium fighters, and also squarely performing very well in the category of like heavy attack, heavy damage dealing, big ship shooters, right? Because that way the problem became the Ares Ion became good at a bunch of different roles, and that is what made it unbalanced.
We want to provide a lot more variety to the gameplay in Star Citizen.
Preach, Mr. Coulson.
For different
Preach.
Players, different responsibilities.
Yes.
Different sort of perspectives and views on gameplay, where people contribute different types of work and different types of jobs.
Star Citizen is supposed to be a big, expansive...
There, see? If that was Jumptown, everybody would be dead. So don't be there when it goes off.
Game with giving the players lots of chances to have a variety.
Okay, I love Ged Talbot. I'm just going to say this right now. This is not offense to him. I've never met this gentleman. He seems like a fucking awesome dude. Jed, if you're watching this video, buddy, I love you. But for God's sake, give this man a towel. Look at the sweat. You know why he's sweating right now? He's sweating because about 1 million people are going to go to Spectrum and they're going to start typing like crazy. They're going to be like, you goddamn assholes, you nerfed my ship. Blah, 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 blah. See, Jed knows. He knows the shitstorm that's about to ensue.
It's not just about...
And he's just... He's perspirating. He's getting ready for it. That is a smart man right there.
It's not just about piracy, it's about all of those things happening at the same time. So we need...
In trying to figure out these roles and define what they are and make the gameplay for them, we've started very heavily leaning toward combat.
Because we don't want the ships to be like, you play this ship, it means you dominate this part of the game. Ships in the right place, because we don't want the ships to be like, you play this ship, it means you dominate this part of the game. Like, you play this ship, it means you dominate this part of the game. Play this ship, it means you dominate this part of the game. Play this ship, it means you dominate this part of the game. Play this ship, it means you dominate this part of the game.
Hold up! Wait a minute. I hate to break it to you guys, but that's been the way it's been since the beginning. Every patch, every single patch, there is one ship that stands above them all. And if it's not the latest ship, it's some other ship for some other silly reason. So if we want to make the game, if we want to get to a place where that doesn't happen, which is what he is saying, right? I'm not making fun of him. I'm saying this is important for you guys to hear, because that means that they are aware that these issues are a big problem for PvP, and that they're like, okay, well, we don't want it to be, you know, only choose the Gladius or the Blade to fight, because that's like the tippity top of the spear, right? I will happily be excited for when we get to a place where we have fighters in their respective roles, performing in their roles, and then bombers in their roles, and vice versa, and that kind of stuff, so that we don't have a situation where it's just one ship to rule them all, or, you know, 2 or 3 ships to rule them all. That there is a breadth of dynamic combat for everybody, so that we can all contribute in our own ways to engaging. So thank
There's
you.
always got to be plus and minuses, so the balance is right. So there's still some crossover between the ships. So just
This is
picking
good.
one type of ship,
This is very good.
you know, isn't just a win.
We have already defined several ship roles, and they're usually known as light, medium, and heavy fighters. Light fighters for us are fighters which are very dominant in the area of 1 versus 1.
Y'all hear what he said?
For us are fighters which are very dominant in the area of 1 versus 1. Dominant in the area of 1 versus 1. Dominant in the area of 1 versus 1 PvP combat.
But there come with a downside, because obviously the light, which means the materials chosen on the ship, are probably not the strongest. So it's more about the attack. It's more about trying to outposition and get in there and attack and get out of the situation.
Heavy fighters are kind of the opposite. They're not supposed to be really good at 1 versus 1. Really good at 1 versus 1. Really good at
Get out of the situation.
Heavy fighters are kind of the opposite. They're not supposed to be really good at 1 versus 1, but they excel at N versus N engagements. So when we have group battle.
So it's kind of like that now, where you have a single pilot in a Hurricane versus another pilot. The Hurricane almost always loses, no matter what the heavy fighter is. But when you start putting turret gunners on heavy fighters, well, then things start to really change, right?
Battles. Medium fighters for us, internally we call Multirole Fighters, because they have a lot of hard
Okay, this right here, I'll let him finish.
points, so they have a lot of loadout flexibility. So a player can tune them to the role whatever they want, but they will never reach the performance of dedicated ships. Flexibility. So a player can tune them to the role whatever they want, but they will never reach the performance of dedicated ships.
They will never reach the performance of dedicated ships. So, there you have it, folks. The medium fighters, in my opinion, will likely be out of the meta at the high level. At the mid to amateur to intermediate levels, the medium fighters might make a nice showing. But if they can never compete really at the same level as some of these specialized fighters, and rightfully so, because they are multi-crew or multi-purpose, then a team of highly coordinated light fighters with a team of highly coordinated bombers is going to be significantly more powerful than a gang of medium fighters that can kind of do both jobs well. You're starting to see the connections here. I made a video on the balance triangle theory, which I think is literally being explained in real time right now to you guys.
A lot of the medium fighters sometimes come with a turret as well, so they've got that.
That's a great question. But what is the point of a medium fighter then? Cost and flexibility, which means less logistics needed to get the same result on target. However, if you're in a highly coordinated, high-performance team, then the logistics start to come into play, and you can start managing the specialized ships for the roles that you need and all that stuff, right? So I'm sure in some situations a medium fighter might be nice to have. I think medium fighters will be a great choice for PvE or player versus environment. But for PvP, I think the specialized light fighters and other ships of this sort, I think that's here to stay. I think that's here to stay. I mean, we'll have to see, right? But it's looking like, because there's only two ways medium fighters can go. Medium fighters can either get so good to the point where they outclass the light fighters, and even though you might arguably say that on paper the light fighters might be better in a dogfight or whatever the case may be, mechanically with the game the way it plays, if the medium fighters can make the light fighters, if they can give them just as good of a fight or better, then everybody will go medium fighter, and they'll be like, why would I use a light fighter when I can use a medium fighter, which is literally better in almost every way, even though on paper I might have slightly less stats here and there, but in reality a Hornet is going to take fights off some of these fighters just by the way you play. Then different story. Or it's most likely, in my opinion, going to flip the opposite way, where medium fighters would be a great choice for rookies and amateurs, and then as you get to the expert and the ace pilot status, you're like, why would I choose a medium fighter? Like I'm obviously going to choose the specialized class, and then, you know, cover my specialized bomber class ships to do a combined arms takedown of whatever I'm doing.
Gameplay of the turret, which is aimed to kind of counter the lack of maneuverability that their ships have.
And then additionally to that, we have racing ships, which are basically just really fast at changing the velocity vectors. And interceptors, which we basically just want to go very fast in the forward area, but never reaching really the performance envelope of dedicated dogfighters.
Never reaching the performance envelope of dedicated dogfighters. Now, what does that mean, ladies and gentlemen? Well, it's like I told you it was. So, what's going to happen is most likely we're going to have higher top speeds for our interceptors, but our interceptors will have significantly better or worse jerk profiles, which means they won't be as responsive, and their turn rates most likely will not be as fast as the light fighters that are dedicated for dog fighting, right? So you'll be able to get away in some situations, but getting to your target is what an interceptor is for. It's to stop someone from disengaging. It's to be a picker, that kind of stuff, right? So we have a very good system in place now for that to be the case.
Bombers, on the other hand, are well, they're just slobbing heavy ordnance at.
So you guys all know how much I absolutely love the dopamine rush that comes from torpedoes. Everybody knows, if you've been watching this channel and you guys have been following my YouTube content, you know how much I get super excited about torpedoes and all that stuff. Bombers are going to be very dangerous, and I think they're going to be the most interesting part of this combat change that we're getting, and here's why. Because bombers are going to be effective at hitting big targets, and because our physical speeds are slower now, dumb firing torpedoes will be a much more viable technique or way of applying damage, right? Which means we're going to have people to stop them from getting murdered. So if having a qualified, coordinated, competent team of light fighters specialized for dogfighting to protect the Eclipse bombers, the Eclipses can come in and basically one-shot or two-shot almost any ship in the game. So you don't even need to bring heavy fighters into this mix, because you can just hit it with a torpedo, and it's like a fast time to kill. It's like instant, right? And anything that tries to chase down and kill these bombers are going to be met with a bunch of angry gladiuses, arrows, and other light fighters of the sort. So one complements the other. One cannot do its job without the other. Now you could say, oh, why not just bring a gang of medium fighters? Because then I could win the dogfight and then also just use the superior firepower of the medium fighters to attack the larger ships. But the problem is that will never be as effective. Never be as effective as if a team of light fighters who cannot engage the larger targets marries up with a team of bombers designed specifically to take out larger targets, but need the cover of light fighters to make sure that they're safe when they actually engage the target, and they don't pick up a bunch of people behind them and start killing all the bombers. Very interesting how this is going to shake up.
Larger targets, so you use them to take out bigger ships, but they're not really good at, well, killing small fighters. And then from smaller ships coming to larger ships like Constellation and up, we want to change the gameplay to be less about positional combat, but more going into the naval style of combat, where it's important to show the correct shield and fire arcs and timing your shots over long distances.
So the purpose of
which is kind of what we have now, with again, like the whole shield swapping, right? Like switching to the right shield, then the left shield, then the right shield, and all that stuff, right? So it's important to understand how to manage
ship
that.
rules is to really help players understand what ships should be used and when.
What ships should be used and when. This is what I've been telling you guys for years. And it's funny to me because it's like the stuff that I've been talking about for so long is like now it's starting to get implemented into the game almost identically the way that I've been trying to get it across to people. And it makes me really excited because this is going to make for a really exciting experience and just a better game in general. But also, you got all these people on Spectrum who are in for a real surprise.
They should be used. And it's really about delivering on those kind of gameplay promises that we've been talking about, over the past, kind of several years.
If every ship is the same, it's not fun. But if we have dedicated ships with dedicated pros and cons, then we can create very exciting combat environments.
I just want to say, Yogi, buddy, I don't care what they say about you, buddy. I love you. Keep doing your thing, buddy. Keep doing your
The biggest
thing.
challenge we see in order to...
So I'm really happy with the changes they're making.
is the current speed that we have in combat.
Now we get to talk about speed. Some people are going to be upset. Have no fear. Somewhere in the universe, the Jimmies rustled softly. I think this is a very positive thing. I think this is a great step forward, and I'll explain why. But first, let's see what they have to say.
It's a subject we've talked about many, many times in the past, and it's something we've tried many things with. We've tried limiting things at speed, we've tried adjusting handling at speed, we've tried so many things to kind of manage the negative impact of speed on combat.
When ships are going fast in combat, they usually just end up very far apart, which is not very interesting, and it just devolves into jousting very, very quickly.
Okay, now what I will say about this is, and I don't want to sound rude or critical or anything like that, but in a lot of cases, the reason why these situations happen with jousting is because lack of flight skill. There is absolutely no reason why, for example, in this situation...
Very far apart, which is not very interesting, and...
Okay, so you've got, first of all, he's traveling at 974 meters per second, first of all, right? He's targeting this guy,
it just
and he's got a...
jousting very quickly.
Like his whole approach angle is way off.
They usually just end up very far.
Okay, we get it. They end up far apart. So like this whole situation that we're seeing right now is a good example of poor flight skill. And I feel like that's kind of an excuse, because even with the 900 to 1100 meter per second speeds that we have, I have no problem getting within 200 meters of people at those high speeds. You just have to understand what lead turning is. You have to understand momentum control. Like, there's a lot of flight skill that gets into being able to actually close up to that distance and engage. For the general audience, it's not intuitive. For the general audience, it's way too difficult. Like, it's way too difficult. And it would take them a long time and a lot of training, a lot of YouTube videos to understand how to get to those distances, right? So I understand why CIG is like, look, we can keep the high speeds, but then we also have to deal with desync and all these other issues. So the choice that they've made...
We want the combat to be closer and to be more turn-oriented, so rotations should matter more than just flat speed.
Having very high speeds that are pretty much the same between all ship classes negates a lot of the opportunity for smaller ships to flex different types of gameplay.
Another big issue with the speeds in combat is it's very hard to keep players engaged in the combat.
It's like he took the words right out of my mouth. I just said that. Listen to that again.
Very hard to keep players engaged in the combat.
Now, why is it hard to keep players engaged in combat? I'm gonna throw this out there to the chat. I said because we bad pilots. It's due to lack of understanding of flight control. It's a long way of saying they're not good at flying, right?
Because players can move so far so quickly in such a short space of time, it's quite hard to keep a track on your opponent.
So you might think, oh, why don't we just make the ship slower and call it a day?
Why don't we?
Well, we can't do that.
The main reason we can't just make everything slower is the size of the Star Citizen world. We've got huge planets where we need to go from the planet's surface up into space. We need to transverse between different systems. So essentially we can't have just low speeds all of the time.
There's a massive universe out there to explore, there's planets to explore.
huge planets where we need to.
I love this guy, man, but he's sweating through this shirt. Can someone give this man a towel? For God's sake.
Space, we need to transverse between different systems. So
This poor man. He knows what Spectrum's about to look like in about 10 minutes.
Have just low speeds all the time.
The past few years with what are called soft speed caps, where there is no speed cap on ships, but we encourage gameplay to occur at a lower speed. But it doesn't really work because the advantages of flying fast in terms of defense is just better.
That's a very true point. Because tricording is so powerful and the speeds are so high, there are situations where if you're in a bad spot, you're like, I'm just going to back up.
So since the last year, the focus of Vehicle Feature Team shifted very heavily towards Squadron 42 and nailing down the flight and space combat experience for it. And I'm very proud to say that we finally found a really good working solution that we're going to show today. So the main idea is to simply not have combat and long-range travel at the same time. So we're splitting these gameplay experiences.
We had a similar mode back in the day called Cruise Control. However, this is basically a better version of that.
It will be done by a thing which is called Master Modes. A Master Mode is a thing that is globally applied to your ship. And we have two of them. We have SCM, which is now relabeled as Standard Control Mode, and QCM or QM for Quantum Mode.
The idea is that between these two modes we can
Cruise and SCM.
constrain the speeds in combat and also get all of the maneuvering, like high speed maneuvering and traversal mechanics that we had before, but in these distinct modes that are integrated with lore and integrated with the ship functions, such that there's costs and payoffs for being in each of the two modes.
So let's start with standard control mode and what this means. So this is the mode that we intend to be the functional mode of the ship, whether it's combat or mining or any of these kind of core.
You can see at the top here, it's labeled differently. It says SCM mode.
What kind of things the ship does. We want the player to do these things in this mode. And what this does is it reduces the speed of the ship, but it also enables the shield to be turned on. And obviously the intent behind this is where you
Yeah, so anything in SCM is, weapons, guns, power management, all that stuff.
do your combat. It's where the guns are on, the missiles can be armed and fired, and all the kind of operational things the ship does operates within this mode.
The speeds that you can reach in SCM
So we're currently coupled in atmosphere going 468.
are somewhat limited, somewhere
But you'll notice that our boost is going down, right?
between 200 and 300 meters per second, tuning pending. But this is basically the hard cap, which you cannot not really exceed. You can slightly exceed this by using boost, but you cannot maintain any velocity beyond that SCM limit for a longer period of time.
So we're thinking of this as some kind of energy management system, so you can go a little bit faster with a little bit more accelerations when you need to, but you know that it is a limited resource.
Okay. Nobody panic. Hear me out. Some people right now are losing their mind. There are some people that are watching this video, and you know who you are, that are just like, God damn it, they ruined it all, blah, blah, blah. That's not realistic. Look, if Star Citizen went for realism, we wouldn't be using planes or anything space fighter-ish. We'd be using drones. It would look like The Expanse. So we got to make a choice here. Either we make the game fun and engaging and balanced, or we go full simulation and we turn it into the most hilariously boring but also kind of cool space combat game we've ever played. But it'd be much, much different than what we have now, right? So cool your brakes, but understand that putting a bigger emphasis on power management is a good thing. If your ship gets tired because of poor management, you're now going to give the enemy an opening to engage you, right? Star Wars Squadrons, which I played professionally and competitively for almost a year and a half, is really good at doing this very thing. Squadrons has a great power management system, and once your ship's out of boost or you mess up your power management in whatever reason, you're in a lot of trouble, right? And a good pilot with good power management skills can keep his ship running at high speeds and all that stuff for quite a long time, right? It's also going to allow the better trained and the better skilled pilot to get those openings when he needs them.
And you should use it carefully.
Specifically, the boost space is interesting for space combat because that boost space is not spheric as it was before. You can boost the fastest if you're going forward on a straight line, and you have a lot of debuffs when you're trying to boost backwards. That alone gets us a lot of interesting maneuvering space and variation in the day-to-day dogfight maneuvering.
Okay, I'm going to let them talk about that one more time because you guys may have missed that, and it's probably the most important thing about this entire model.
For space combat, because that boost space is not spheric as it was before.
That boost space is not spherical as it was before. So, what does that mean, Avenger 1? Well, I'm glad you asked. I will paint on it. There's the nose. Like that, yeah, like that. Oh yeah. Sorry, I got a little carried away. There's the cockpit. Oh, just like that. Yeah, right there. Oh yeah. Oh, sorry, we're still streaming. Anyway, so there's our arrow in all her glory. Under normal combat maneuvering. Okay. So what does that mean? Normal combat maneuvering. So this will be our space of operation. Okay, looks something like this. Okay, there we see it. Okay, which means that we can go, okay, in this direction. Let's say we're topping out at 250 just for math. So 250 this way, and we can go 250 this way. All right. So we can go 250 either way. Now, what happens? What happens, Avenger 1, if we get a different circle? And that different circle looks something like this, where our circle is offset. So, this is our ship under boost potential, which means that we can go from here to the top of our boost. If we're using our boost, we can get above this little speed level. So we can get above, like, let's say to 300, right? But if we're going forward using our main thruster, we can boost all the way up to 400 meters per second. Now, what does this mean? What does this mean? This means that if you are aggressing onto somebody, you are pushing forward towards them, you are going to close distance. Which means if somebody turns around and starts shooting back towards you, if you're advancing onto them, you're always going to close distance on them. Always. Because the amount of time they have to spend in boost, if you look at it here, like, you know, all I got to do is push a little bit of boost and boom, I'm already way past that 300 meter mark, which means every second I'm closing by 100 meters per second, 100 meters per second, 100 meters per second. Boom, I've crossed, 400 meters just there, right? So the person that's advancing onto the enemy is always going to have the advantage, right? This is going to promote two types of behavior. One, it's going to promote chasing behavior, which means the fighter that's chasing is always going to be the one that's aggressing. Right? Once the fighter, let's say you're in a heavy fighter like a Vanguard, right? The Vanguard, once the arrow gets up on the Vanguard, the chance the Vanguard has to be able to get away is going to be lower because the turn rate of the Vanguard and the speed of the Vanguard, the way it works out, a lot of times what's going to happen is the light fighters are going to be able to get in behind them, right? And at this point, you're going to almost entirely be relying on your turret gunner. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they tune this, because if they keep turret gunners the way they are right now, they're way too easy to use. Like, they're way too easy to use. So they need to take their gimbal cone of turret gunning from 20 degrees and they got to knock that shit down to like 5 degrees. Because if we have a 20 degree auto gimbal zone, like, how can you miss? Like, how can you miss, right? So decoupled will be a bit less good. Well, yeah, absolutely, right? I mean, I'll still fly decoupled because there's other angles that are easier to manage, right? And because it's more manual, it's definitely going to be a thing, right? So, good. Now that we've explained that,
you can boost the fastest if you're going forward on a straight line, and you have a lot of debuffs when you're trying to boost backwards. That alone gets us a lot of interesting maneuvering space and variation.
He's talking about turn rates. Interesting maneuvering space and variations. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means that a ship with a higher turn rate and a higher acceleration is going to be able to get up onto something that's bigger than it and rotate, right? So some ships that have better turn rates or better fighters are going to be able to get in there.
In the day-to-day dogfight maneuvering.
Right? But now, if you decouple, turn around, and spin onto your opponent, like, even if you're in a faster ship, you're going to slowly keep getting closer until you're back into that rate fight, and then you've got to start fighting into the brawl, and then string out again, and then the fight gets closer, back into the brawl, and then boom, string out again, and then closer, back into the brawl, right?
Or QCM or QM. What this mode does is it unlocks your maximum velocity that your ship can reach. So when you were limited before to 200 to 300 meters per second, now you can go to 1200, 1400 meters per second, whatever your ship allows you.
Okay, so quantum boost mode is basically what we currently have right now. It just turns off all your systems, your weapons, your shields. It's all turned off.
During the development of the quantum mode, we realized we needed something that was a little bit more kind of about traveling large distances, but not at the distances that you need to, speed up your quantum drive and travel across the universe. So we've created this feature called Quantum Boost, which is available in the quantum mode, and you can access it at any point. So at any point you want to kind of boost towards your location that you're kind of looking at, but it's just too far away. And this boost is available for a limited amount of time, and it's purely on a straight line.
Just to give you like a ballpark, quantum boost will allow you to go to a target fast if it's within, let's say, 50,000 kilometers, whereas you will use quantum travel to do very long range jumps between planets. So quantum mode allows you to go very, very fast with up to like 1200, 1400 meters per second when you want to zip really fast over a planet. It also allows you to do quantum boost to quickly go between points of interest, which are rather close to you. And it allows you to travel long distances between planets and large-scale stellar objects. But it comes at a cost. Your capacitor systems are non-functional because they interfere with the quantum bubble that is allowing you to go fast.
Translation, we put an in-game mechanic in place to make it believable because fights at above X amount of speeds are just not fun or engaging, and so we want the game to take place here. So anything above that, we have to have some reason as to have it not take place there.
You won't have shields. Your shields will collapse right away when you swap into quantum mode. Your weapons will stop working because anything that's firing outwards of your ship will disintegrate the quantum bubble. Your countermeasures won't work, and you will also not be able to use thruster boost. So basically all your capacitor and combat related systems are turned off instantly.
This is interesting because what happens if you want to chase somebody who's going super fast? For example, what if we're in a situation with this new flight system and we're like, holy shit, there's a guy who's just speeding like crazy across our area and we don't want him to be here. Somebody go intercept him, right? Well, use all the techniques that I have shown you, lead turning, momentum canceling, pre-nose, all that stuff, right? Get your ship in your quantum mode to merge up close to that enemy guy, right? So get whatever you could do to close the distance, right? Then you could do one of two things. But watch this, right? If we merge up to our target, let's say our target's right here, right? There's our enemy Buccaneer. It's got its engines. It's got its really weird penis-shaped, front to it. It's weird little tail fins. It's awkward turret. That's a Buccaneer. So we got our Buccaneer, right? And that Buccaneer is sailing at fucking ludicrous speed this direction, right? Well, it just so happens that we have also been able to merge up to our enemy so that we're within, let's say, 500 meters. Okay? With our quantum boost travel mode. But then you say, well, Avenger, I'm at 1300 meters per second, but I can't turn on my guns and I'm within 500 meters. What do I do? Well, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that question. Well, here's what we're going to do, folks. What we're going to do is we're going to immediately kick into our SCM mode. Okay? Our standard combat maneuvering mode. Right? He is going to start separating distance from us. But here's the kicker. As soon as we engage our SCM mode, our speeds now drop down to, let's say, the 500 meter mark because we're boosting. And he starts to separate distance from us. But what does he not have turned on? What is he missing that I have? Countermeasures and missiles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my long-range weapon system. I'm going to use my size 3 torpedo. Okay? There's my size 3 torpedo. Okay? It's got tons of energy oozing out the back. It's got that's the targeting pod in the front. Okay? It's using its radar like this as its tracking cone to ensure that it's always tracking its So anyway, so we have our missile, okay? What's going to happen is we're going to fire our missile. It's going to cross the distance. It's going to go way faster. Okay? Now we can fire multiple missiles, right? If we want to have multiple shots at the cat here with our tracking pods, right? If we want to have multiple missiles going at them, that's fine, right? But what's going to happen is one of two options is going to happen. Okay? Option number 1, the missile screams in, boom, and he's fucking toast because he's got no shields and no countermeasures. And that missile is on one path, and that is straight towards him. Okay? Now you say, well, Avenger, what do I do? Well, that's a great question. Say you're that buccaneer. Okay? Say you lost a bet at the ruined station, and your buccaneer needs some maintenance, but you've got some guns on it, and you've got this really angry arrow that wants to kill you. What do you do? Well, option number 2 is you drop your speed to standard combat maneuvering, or standard, what was it? What was the acronym they use again? Standard counter maneuvering, standard combat maneuvering? I don't know, whatever. You're going to drop down to SCM speeds. You're going to turn your ass around. Standard control mode. Thank you. You're going to turn your ass around and you're going to fight like a man. You're going to fight to the death. Or option number 3, you're going to ask very kindly and very nicely for this enterprising young individual who obviously has more skill than you to not murder you in the face. Option number 4, you Alt F4. But we all know where that gets us. Okay, so now we understand where the game is headed. And like clockwork, like I've told you guys who've been watching my stream time in and time out, there is going to come a day where you will not be able to run. Now, this is where stealth becomes important, because the window that you have, the window of opportunity that you have to get a missile lock and fire will be significantly less in a stealth fighter, which means you're going to have to be a lot better at closing distance, dropping and getting into missile mode, boom, and firing a missile. So make sure that whatever you're doing, if you're in a stealth ship, you understand that you don't want to just take a fight if you don't need to. You can get away. But if you're not in a stealth fighter or a stealth ship of any type, prepare to fight, because he's going to be able to lock that missile onto you, and he'll be able to fire before you leave his lock range, right? And it also adds a really interesting dynamic for stuff like constellations, because if a constellation's, if it's in your, I guess you could say, if that Connie is in the battle space, it's very difficult to leave that battle space now, because if you try to leave, that Connie's got fucking 52 size 2 missiles or size 1 missiles to keep you there, because every time you try to get away, that like beep 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 beep, oh, got missile tone, I got to drop down, flare it off, I got to counter maneuver. So it's like getting stuck in molasses. Like it's when the Connie's there, it's like, all right, that's it. All right, everyone fights. You know what I mean? It's just like, well, fuck. Missile boats will be the ships to stop people from disengaging, right? So, all right, let's finish the rest of this here. I know this is going to be a long.
There'll be a little period of time where everything has to spool up and change. So you will lose your shields during this. You won't have your weapons during this, but you also won't be going fast. So there's a risk-reward element when you need to switch modes.
Okay, notice something here.
A little period of time where everything has to spool up and change.
Okay, watch this little section on the top left. Right here, Scm mode. Watch it tick over.
So you will lose your shields
Scm, boom, quantum. Now count the seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Boom. That's when he would be 8 seconds in a dogfight. 8 seconds in a dogfight. You think you're gonna survive 8 seconds in a dogfight with no shields against me? You'll be dead. Doesn't matter if you're a light fighter or a heavy fighter. That's so long. So, what do we say to the god of death? Not today. And we don't do that by going into fucking quantum mode mid-fight. Okay? So if you are in a dogfight and you try to leave because, oh no, my shields are down, I gotta hit that big red button and I gotta get out of here. Guess what, baby? I got you for 8 seconds, and it's not gonna be a nice 8 seconds. It's gonna be a fucking nasty 8 seconds. Okay? It's exactly what I told you guys years ago. There's gonna come a time where you simply will not be able to run. You are committed to the fight. That is why you must learn how to defend yourself. You must understand the fundamentals. Because if people watch my stream and you guys watch the content I put on YouTube, I genuinely want the best for people who play Star Citizen. And in my opinion, I have a better time if I'm not getting shot to pieces every fucking 10 seconds. Okay? So, in this system, you will not be able to just run away when your shields go down. Like, you have to fight. And every second you waste trying to, like, shake them off and deal with them is a second you could be engaging, and you could be eliminating the threat that is currently engaging you. Okay? Now, there are times to run. There are times to run, right? But not in that way, right? What's better for you to do would be to stay in standard control mode and get distance based on your energy management skills, and understanding that, like, say for example, the Vanguard probably has quite a high top speed in standard control mode, which means it'll be able to separate distance from quite a bit of fighters. And if you're not shooting guns and putting power to other places, then it's likely you'll have plenty of power and energy for you to get distance and separate that distance so that you're out of danger. And then when you've got the distance, then go into quantum mode and get yourself out of there entirely, right? But in order for that to happen, a chase will ensue, like I showed you guys, right? Because if you decide to turn your nose around and re-engage the target, he's gonna slowly get back onto you, right? So when you decide, and this is the big thing, when you decide to take your nose off the target and turn it back towards that target, you are making a conscious choice to re-engage in combat. Okay? If your nose is away from your target and you're using your main thruster to get the fuck out of there, then you are choosing to try to get away. But you don't switch into quantum mode if you're inside that engagement zone. right? Because if you do, you're giving that guy 8 seconds to just shoot the piss out of you with no shields. Your shields go down immediately. So you got to make a choice, which makes me smile in my heart like you wouldn't believe. It makes me so happy, like a little kid in a candy store again, because everything I have told you guys, and I mean everything from the fucking beginning, is starting to get implemented. So you have to understand that you need to learn how to defend yourself. You have to learn to get better. And now there will be no running away. You have a choice: die or learn, because it ain't gonna be pretty.
This choice of what mode you should be in at any particular point. So if you feel under threat of someone that's close by, you're not quite sure what their intention is, maybe switch to standard control mode and be safe. Or
maybe switch to standard control mode and be safe. Now, why would that be? Because if you stay in high speed mode and he doesn't like you, he's gonna go, you know what? Fuck this guy. 4 missile rack, target, fire.
you can switch into quantum mode and escape. And this is going to kind of bring in an element of danger and an element of risk.
Because going into the two different modes is like a systemic thing within the ship's items, we actually have the opportunity now to define ship roles that can block people.
Buffer will be more meaningful. Yes, it will. Distance control will be so important.
From escaping, either using devices that suppress the quantum bubble or devices that can effectively interfere with your ability to transfer between the modes. For example, specific ships like interceptors can be tuned such that they have a higher standard control mode speed, so they're able to catch up with people. Or, for example, make the swap between the modes faster and more efficiently so that they could catch up with you, go into standard control.
Can you notch missiles in QCM? You know what? I genuinely think you probably could. And I really do hope so, because that would add a really cool skill check as well, right? Because if it's easy to just lock a missile and fire, right? I mean, it would be really cool to see, if first of all, you've got to give him 8 seconds of not having your shields up to even disengage in the first place. So if you did get that and you're able to start getting distance and he still fires a missile at you, you wait for the timer, get it close, notch it, and pull off. You know what I mean? I think that would be awesome.
Control mode and attack you more effectively as per the properties of their ship versus another ship which might not be as good at doing something like that.
It's something that's fundamentally changed the gameplay experience for us. And this is working now, and we're playing it every day in the studio, we're refining it, we're tweaking bits here and there, but we're at that stage now where we're tweaking and balancing. We've got the core features, it's there in the game playable. And the difference it's made on the game for us is it's basically night and day.
Because the speeds have been limited in standard control mode, suddenly fights are a lot closer.
Suddenly fights are a lot closer, you don't say.
Accelerations of ships similarly have been retuned a little bit, and their afterburner strength has been retuned a little bit to make it so that you can orbit around ships and have a lot more interesting maneuvering. And because the ranges are closer, maneuvers that would be performed by your ship have a much more significant impact because you're closer. So if I
you're more rate limited.
Thrust up or down, you'll immediately see the difference. So similarly, things like capital ships effectively get a buff to their offensive capabilities with this change, because suddenly you can't orbit a capital ship at high range and high speeds. You have to get a lot closer, which will make the turrets much more effective at shooting you. Turrets become more important, and working as a group to attack capital ships is more important than it has been before.
Oh, fuck, that vodka aftertaste is horrible.
This is a really exciting change because it allows us to keep the combat speeds relatively low, where we know that the gameplay is better for that, while also keeping the point-to-point travel speeds as high as they should be for PU.
Playing with Master Modes in Squadron 42 has been a lot of fun, simply because it's changed the entire combat experience. Before,
I fucking love this guy. I fucking love this guy.
That you were fighting at a huge distance. Now you're finding that you're in really tight, close combat with the other players. I think the biggest part of this is going to be...
See, he is sweating like crazy, man, because he knows that there are legions, and I'm talking legions of people that are going to come to Spectrum that are going to be like, what are you guys doing? I can't run away at a drop of a hat.
When we have the lot.
They're putting danger back into Star Citizen. Yes! Yes! They're putting danger back in, baby.
With the smaller ships. Once we can have battles with big capital ships and smaller ships.
I want an SCM slider.
That I don't think there's been before. And I think it'll make a massive improvement to the game.
Having made these changes to implement master modes and rebalancing all of the ship speeds, we'll finally be able to define ship roles in the way that we've always wanted, and to bring a lot more variety to the gameplay that we haven't had before.
So it's been a really long journey here, obviously, because you've been a part of this journey. And we've tried many different things over the time to try and really create an experience.
Yes, you guys have.
The reality is, from us, it came down to what it always is in Star Citizen, which is creating choice for the players. It's about giving players the option, and their choices have consequences. So with master modes, it really helps define the player choice in the game. So they're choosing to do combat, they're choosing to travel from A to B in quantum, they're choosing to QT boost somewhere. Just giving players that freedom within the universe we have is just, it's a really magical thing, and we try many times to control that as designers, to try and get a specific experience at some point. But we always end up coming back to the fact, let's just give the players the choice and let them make the key decisions, and we'll design the balance around that.
We finally have it. So we're now nailing down the space combat experience for Star Citizen, specifically for Squadron 42. We know from internal playtest that the master mode stuff works. We know that it works with our flight retunings, and it's very exciting. It will yet take a while to ship this to the PU, because the amount of ships you fly in Squadron 42 is rather limited, whereas in Star Citizen we have about, more than 100 ship records at the moment. But the whole hard problem of designing this thing in the first place is over. We just need to get the numbers in now. The numbers in now. Place is over. We just in the first place is over. We just need to get the numbers in now. The problem of designing this thing in the first place is over. Problem of designing this thing in the first place is over. We just need to get the numbers in now.
I'm gonna play that one more time.
Yet take a while to ship this to the PU, because the amount of ships you fly in Squadron 42 is rather limited, whereas in Star Citizen we have about, more than 100 ship records at the moment. But the whole hard problem of designing this thing in the first place is over. We just need to get the numbers in now.
Do you guys hear that? That is the sound of 1,000 Star Citizens all crying out in terror. Because they're starting to realize what you folks have realized from coming here, that there's going to come a time where you cannot escape.
And all the footage you've seen today is from Squadron. It's all currently playable in the game. That internally, we're playing this every day. We're still making some tweaks, but everything is there right now.
Archangel, you are correct. We will still be able to disengage, but there'll be risk associated to disengaging. That's what I'm saying.
It's all about the foundational kind of tweaks that we're making. And we can't wait to get it in your hands.
So thanks a lot for listening to us today. We're very, very excited to get the changes to you as soon as possible. And yeah, we'll hope to see you fighting in the verse.
I just want to say a big thanks to Yogi, because y'all don't realize the kind of gem that gentleman is. When I say that this dude understands what is going on with the game, this gentleman understands. CIG and Star Citizen and you folks watching this video are very fucking lucky that somebody like him is in that position, who gives a shit about the game and who's willing to make the hard choices. So on behalf of myself and everyone here at the Avenger Squadron, I just want to say a big thanks to Yogi and the rest of the team for putting their necks out here and taking the hard decisions and making an incredible game that I think is going to stand the test of time. I think we'll be playing Star Citizen 20 years from now. And you know what? There ain't going to be no pip wigglers, It ain't gonna be no like super hyper disengagers. It's gonna be skill. It's gonna be dogfighting. It's gonna be visceral. It's gonna be up in your face. And ships are gonna have roles, and we're gonna have a lot of fun for the next 2 decades enjoying this. And there's gonna come a day, years from now, mark my words, there is gonna come a day years from now when I'm bald and gray. That's right, Attacks. Where people will sit back and be like, man, Star Citizen is deep and engaging. And the majority of the player base will start to get to the point where I and a lot of other members here in this community who are training and understanding PvP will get to and be like, I'm really glad they made those decisions all those years ago, because it keeps me engaged in the game 5, 6, 10 years down the road, right? Woo! What a CitizenCon, baby!